So now that we're done with the whittling, what we're going to move on to now is the sandpaper aspect. So the sandpaper is the easiest part. There's not much to learn about it. All you're going to do is simple down and up patterns. You can go in a circle, like whatever you want to do. All you're doing is softening the edges. Does not take long at all. Just refining the stick. So this task is nice. The wood right here is really smooth now. Has not taken long, as you've seen. It has a little bit of dust on it. That's no big deal. You can blow it off. You can rinse it off with a little washcloth, whatever you want to do. I still have the rest of the stick to do. But this is nice. You can use this in actually a therapy aspect if you wanted to. Like I mentioned during the whittling, it's not so much for dexterity of your fingers, but for using the compound muscles of your hand and fingers, where you can kind of create one whole task of pushing down. You're using elbow, bicep, shoulder, things like that. Nothing too demanding, but just enough to activate it and get you moving a little bit. Making your muscles work as a team, as a unit. And as you can see, whittling and kind of crafting a stick or a walking stick, there's not that much to it. It is a little bit longer of a process, depending on what you consider long. So obviously, if you're knitting, things like that will take much, much longer typically. But I think this is a pretty simple, straightforward task that creates some satisfaction for myself. I can see my own progress and completed project when I'm done. I also like to create spears. I've created them in the past. I think they're fun, just a little fun idea, because then I can whittle a sharp edge on it. I can carve whatever I want into it. Sometimes I'll leave the bark on and just make like a little bit of a flare for it, like pieces hanging off of it. Just something different, a little bit extra, you know. So right now I am sanding the edge of the stick, but I don't want to sand the bottom of it, because the bottom of it should stay rough. That way, if you do use it on a carpet or something like that, you do want it to still kind of stick, because if you make it too soft, it might slip underneath you. You can put a tennis ball underneath it, like you see on a lot of the walking sticks, like the four-wheeled walkers. Give you some extra grip, some friction. But that is the reason why I have not sanded the bottom, is to keep that friction. Sometimes it's nice to have like a little bit of a blunt point on the end of it. That way you can a little bit more friction, and it does stick in the ground a little bit better. But just for the sake of not wanting to get it confused with the spear, I have cut that end off. You could whittle a blunt onto it, but that would take a little bit longer. So finishing up the sanding here. Long strokes now. Just kind of getting it as a whole. Not working on any individual parts anymore. I've gone over all the knots. So although the knots are still there, the knots are very, very smooth. No rough edges here. There will be no splinters. Nothing like that. So this is very smooth now. I'm happy with this end product for the sandpaper portion. And we are going to move on into the wood etching portion of it. Oh, let me get this end real quick. All right, and on to the etching. So when it comes to the etching is a slower process. It's more tedious. You'll be using a little bit more dexterity. So make sure that you are kind of calm during this process and you are being aware of you're using a hot iron-ish tool. So what we're going to do now is move forward into that. The etching is a somewhat newer thing to me. I'm by no means great at it. So I'm just going to kind of create my own little thing. Nothing in particular. I'm just looking to make a little bit of design into it. So I think what I might do first is, if you can see this line right here, I'm going to just follow this line down a little bit and kind of make it more profound. So again, moving away from your body. This does not move in big pieces. It is somewhat harder to actually make it go in a straight line because I am using like a soldering looking piece. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to replace this soldering piece and use a different edge. So when you want to replace it, you want to turn off. So there's a button right here, turn off. Let it cool down a bit and maybe use an oven mitt or some kind of glove. That way you can unscrew it because it does screw in. So you're going to want to unscrew it and replace it, and make sure that you are using protection when you're using this, or else it will burn your hand. Okay, so I have gathered a towel here and I've wetted an end of it. And so I just turned off the soldering iron, or the etcher I should say, sorry. So I'm going to kind of dab it cool. So making it so it's not so hot. I don't want to burn the towel. But it is still extremely hot. So I'm going to begin unscrewing it. You want to be careful because it is still hot. I can feel it through the towel a bit. And as you can see, I just dropped it. So I got a hold of it right here. I'm going to place it on the rock that I discussed earlier. That way it doesn't burn any countertops, nothing like that. And I'm going to insert the next piece. So this is still hot. You want to make sure you don't touch it. You can wait until it's fully cool if you wish. For the sake of this presentation or video, I'm going to just keep it going. Okay, so the next piece in, it's ready to go. I'm turning it on now. So, I'm not sure how hot it's going to be right away, but I'm also not going to test that. And we're going to move right back into this piece right here. I'm going to go for this line once again. So I do have a little bit longer piece now, more of like a chisel shaped. All right, we're back. So I switched the heads from the soldering piece, from the soldering looking piece to this more of a chisel one. And it's taken about 10 minutes to warm up, so I probably will stick with this piece. And we're gonna try and etch this little part out here still, all down through here. So it's just kind of a slow drag for this. Kind of like you're tracing and retracing, so I just go through the pattern, up, follow it. get a little bit closer. So as I mentioned, it's not really a fast process. As you can see, I've only gone this far. So it does require a little bit of patience. And I am still pushing away from my body. Let me try and move this camera angle. Okay. So I am still moving away from my body. And the best thing you can do is if the iron starts, or if the etcher starts to fall, let it fall. Don't try and catch the rope. Don't try and catch the piece, because you might get pretty severely burned, and you don't want that to happen. No reason for it. So just make sure that you're staying patient through the process. Don't get anxious. Don't be just trying to speed up through it, because it just won't work. This is definitely the slowest part of the project here, the presentation. Having a fan around would be nice. I didn't have the fan on because for the sake of the sound in the video, but it does smoke a little bit from burning it. So I finished this line right here, and a little bit more. I etched around this right here, so I kind of just made it darker. So as you can see, I like to just use it to make the other parts of the stick pop. So not necessarily carving like my name into it or drawing on it, because I don't really have like the articulateness for it, I guess. I just like to color around things and kind of highlight it, or just color in parts of the stick that make the other ends of the stick pop. So as I continue down the stick, I'm just going to do a few more etchings of those and just kind of create more design for the stick and just see where it takes me. And then that's where I'll finish up. I'll start etching a little bit more of those and then show the end result.